Okay, now that we have our box all beautifully modeled up, we are going to end up figuring out how we're going to machine this out. So this is going to require us, if you haven't done it at this point, recommend you save along the way. Use your save version. If you want to, you could do box modeled. Okay, so make sure to save. Save frequently. So now we're coming over here to where it says model. We're going to come down to cam. Now, this is going to take a little bit of time. I've got physical samples if you're in my class here of knowing where we're going with this thing and how it's going to go. But with you need some knowledge about machining in order to have an idea of how about going about this. But I'm going to spoon feed that to you for right now. But what we want here, units, millimeters, that's not good for us right now. So change that to inch. Okay, that's first things first there, inches. Now we need to do something called the setup. Notice when you come to cam here, this menu bar up here, that's model. Come down to cam, this is how you can kind of know that you're in cam. When you see these icons, setup, 2D, 3D, drilling, multi-axis turning, that means you're in the cam module mode right now. Okay, so what we need to do, every cam element has to start with a setup. We have these pull downs here, setup. Currently there are no setups here, so what we got to do is create a new setup. Alright, then this dialog box is going to open up. What this is doing is we have what's called a work coordinate system, a WCS, and this is vitally important for when we go out to our machine tool that we set this up correctly and know where we are, because bad things will happen if we do not. But what we got to do for right now, by default it's coming up with model orientation. So this is the XYZ direction relative to the model just by default. It's the way that it works. But now here we can redefine how we want it to be, which is something we're going to have to do. Now these options do somewhat similar things, just depending on what you're doing and you got, it's easy, but for here I'm just going to use select Z-axis and Y-axis, or excuse me, select Z-axis plane and X-axis. And this gives you a description of what all those things do. You can read through those on your own, but I'm hovering over this. I'm clicking on that. Now, this thing just happened to pop up here, which is helpful if you want to do that. So right now what it's asking me for is the Z-axis. None is defined at the moment, so we need to then define it. So it sets the Z-axis for the plane. This is going to be the direction that the cutting tool is actually perpendicular and oriented to, and the direction that the spindle is going to move in a milling machine. So for us, we want it to be this axis right here. So when I click on that green line right there, oh, that wasn't quite what I wanted either. So rotate around. No, that still wasn't right. Not work plane. No, that's not what I want. So back, what I did there was I clicked that off. What I'm trying to do here is I want that green line right there. Z-axis, oriented that way. That looks good to me. Now it's asking X-axis. What do you want the X-axis to be? I could click on this red line right here, which is one way of doing it, or say you could click on any of these edges going that direction. So like what I'm hovered over here right now, to me, it looks like another good candidate for what the X-axis would be. It's right there. Whoops. That's now going the opposite. I want my positive X-axis because the way it's going to be on the machine going that way. So very simply here, to reorient that, I'm going to click right there. So here, right there, X going that direction, Z going up positive that direction, Y positive going that direction. So that orientation looks good. However, best machining practices, you can make debates and arguments. It really depends on what you want to do. I'm going to say for right now in a simple setup, the last thing it's asking for is a stock point to where we're actually going to put the origin location. And I'm going to click right there. So that stock point is where my machine, what ultimately becomes the G54 work offset, in this case, is going to be right there. That's what I want. Okay. Now, the next thing we're going to have to take a quick look at here is going to be the stock itself. That here is this kind of ugly yellowish looking color, beigeish yellow, transparent, that is encapsulating our model. That is the stock, the raw material, as it would be, that we're going to try and machine away from machine that stock away to leave us with the part inside that we want. Now, it by default goes to a relative size box that right now it's adding, so 0.04, 40 thousandths of an inch of material to both the stock sides, both directions, and the stock top there. But for what I really want right now is I'm going to change this. And you could do add top, bottom, no additional stock, add stock to all sides. That would add it around 0 all directions. But what I want to do in my case here is a fixed size box, because this is going to give me the power to just straight up specify my raw material blank here. So X width 3 inches by default. Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. I'm going to end up actually using a piece of aluminum that is going to be saw cut to 3 inches long, that from the factory is going to be 2 inches this direction, and from the supplier is also 1 inch tall this direction in Z. So that's excellent. However, once we actually start machining more things, there's one more thing that I'm going to want to do. Again, if we were to look at this from the front view straight on, the model position is positioned centered in the Z-axis here. I'm going to say we're going to want to constantly be thinking about is how are we actually going to grip onto this part, and it's going to make more sense when we actually go to machine things, but I'm going to change that value. I went change from center to offset from Z top. I'm going to call this 0.025, and as I do that, see how it shifts, it effectively shifted the stock downward to bias the model towards the top of the stock up here, so that now that's actually the model there. The stock is then 25 thousandths of an inch taller up there, and then that's going to leave me with a lot more material to grip on to down here. If you were to run the arithmetic, the distance from here to here is actually going to be 0.225 inches. Okay, and that is going to allow us more material to grip onto down here, which is going to be really of a concern when we start to actually put this on a machine and machine it. Alright, but for right now I click OK. When I click OK, I now have a setup right underneath there. Okay, so that's where this video is going to leave off. We've got an established setup.